Hello, and thank you for watching The Righteous Kitchen, a cooking and baking blog found at www.therighteouskitchen.blogspot.com. I had a request to make a chocolate mousse trifle, so I'm going to use the same method and the same recipe for my chocolate mousse cake. The only difference is instead of stacking the cake layers, I'm going to cut them up and then layer everything into a trifle bowl. So we'll go ahead and get started with the mousse. Just hang on and I'll get everything ready for that. I am going to make a chocolate mousse trifle. Now I will bake the cake tomorrow, but to prepare the ganache mousse, my mousse base is going to be with ganache, so I need to prepare the ganache the night before I put together the trifle. So to do that, I like this milk chocolate. It's from Trader Joe's. It's their Pound Plus. It's a pound of chocolate for about $5. So, and it's actually a little bit over a pound, 17.6 ounces. So what I'm going to do, I'm not going to use a scale, but my recipe is calling for 10 ounces of chocolate, and it's a little bit more than the standard recipe where you would use a cup of whipping cream and 8 ounces of chocolate. I'm doing a little bit more of the ganache filling, the ganache mousse filling. So I am going to use about 10 ounces of this, and I'm just going to guesstimate right there. Move this out of the way. So I'll chop this, and I have 1 1/4 cup of heavy whipping cream. It has to be heavy whipping cream and not milk. So what I'm going to do to this is just put it in a microwave safe bowl and get that nice and warm. I'm going to try about 1.5 minutes and then see if that's warm enough to melt the chocolate. So what I've done here is just give it a quick chop. You just want to break it up into smaller pieces so that it's easier to melt. So we'll just get all this chocolate in the bowl. Now tomorrow I'll make the Hershey's chocolate cake. And I do have a video uploaded step-by-step how to put together the chocolate cake. And I'll just bake that in a 9x13 pan for this recipe. And then this will be the mousse. And then I'll whip up some whipping cream. So it's a very simple but very tasty and elegant trifle. All right, so we just get in here and stir it. We want everything to come together. Now, if your cream isn't hot enough to where everything's melting, you could just put it right back into the microwave. Looks like everything is melting. Now, if you don't have the Belgian chocolate, you can use milk chocolate chips. You could even use a dark chocolate mousse if you want with dark chocolate. And the reason you want to do this the night before is you want this to completely chill. And then once it chills, I'm going to whip this. So basically it'll become a whipped ganache. You could use it to frost cakes and cupcakes like that, but we're gonna continue it even further and turn it into a mousse. Once we whip this and then fold in whipped cream, it'll become a mousse. So this is very versatile, this ganache. Now you've probably seen those fancy drip cakes where they go and put the drip around the top of the cake. Once this starts to cool a little bit, you could do the same thing with this ganache. So there's very, very many uses for this. I'm just gonna stir it just a little bit more. We want to make sure there's no chocolate lumps in here. We want it completely smooth. And that looks pretty good. All right. So that's combined and nice and smooth. So I'm just gonna wrap it with some plastic wrap. And you want this wrapping to just sit right on top of your ganache. All right, so this is just gonna refrigerate overnight, and then we'll come back tomorrow and put the trifle together. Okay, so last night I made the base to my mousse filling, which was to make a milk chocolate ganache. And I had this chilling in the refrigerator overnight. So now I'm gonna bring that together. And I'm also going to whip the heavy whipping cream. We're gonna have whipped cream that goes as part of our layer. Plus we're gonna incorporate some whipped cream into this ganache for a mousse. So, what I'm gonna do, move everything out of the way. I have 1 quart of heavy whipping cream. And I'm going to pour the whole thing into my mixer. This recipe does use a lot of whipping cream. We've got a quart here that we've used, and then another 1 1/4 cups that went into the ganache. So to this, I'm going to add 2/3 cup of powdered sugar. If you don't have powdered sugar, you could use granulated sugar, and that should work fine. So what we're going to do is start out on slow and then bring your mixing speed up to high, and we want to whip this to a nice stiff peaks like you would have for whipped cream. We're just going to gradually increase the speed so that we don't have this cream splashing all over the place. And I have a 5-quart bowl here. If you're using the 4-quart mixer, you might want to just split that in half and do 2 batches. And as it starts to thicken up, you can just increase the speed a little bit at a time. All right, I'll be back as soon as this whipping cream gets to nice stiff peaks. Okay, the whipped cream has stiffened up. You don't want to overbeat this. It'll turn waxy and be on its way to butter. So you just want it, you know, nice and firm. And then once it gets there, just keep an eye on it. So we got stiff peaks. All right, I'm gonna set the camera up and then I'll be right back. Okay, we have the whipped cream. So I'm gonna set that aside. And then I'm gonna get the ganache that has chilled in the refrigerator overnight. And I want to whip this up. So I'm just gonna scoop it right into this mixing bowl. Okay, we're gonna loosen this up a little bit in the mixer. We want this to get light and fluffy as it can be, so just kind of keep an eye on it. Okay. I'm going to come back and adjust the camera, and then we'll proceed. Okay, so I whipped that ganache, and you can see it's got a really nice stiff peak. At this point, if you wanted to make a ganache frosting, this would be it. You just take your ganache, chill it, and then whip it. You could pipe this, but we're continuing on and making this into a mousse. So, and I do want to point out, I do have 2 mixing bowls. The more baking and cooking you do and you're utilizing your KitchenAid mixer, and you come to a point, a lot of people, and they say, I need another mixer. Well, you don't really need another mixer. A lot of times you just need a second bowl. So that's a nice cost saving thing, is just to invest in a second bowl. All right, this comes in really handy if you're making a lot of treats, say for the holidays, and you're putting cakes and cookies and brownies and that type of stuff together. A second bowl is really going to come in handy. All right. So with this, we've got our whipped cream. We're going to use that for whipped cream, and we're going to use part of this whipped cream to go into our ganache and make a mousse. So what I'm going to do is, hold on just a second. I'm going to take about 2 cups worth. And I'm going to fold it into, so that's probably a cup, and that's probably a cup. And I'm going to keep this as a layer. So I'm just going to come in here and fold it into the whipped ganache. And then this is going to turn into a mousse. So just fold it. But you want it completely incorporated. So we've almost got this all. You don't want to see any of the whipped cream left. All right. So there it is. There is the chocolate mousse. So I've got the chocolate mousse, the whipped cream. I'm going to put those over to the side. And when I was in the pantry looking for chocolate, I noticed I had a little milk chocolate stick. This is used to make hot cocoa. But today, I'm just going to go ahead and grate it. And then this is going to be a topping for the top of the trifle. The nice thing about a trifle is you don't have to put a lot of fuss into decorating it. Now on my mousse cake, I take the time and make really fancy chocolate curls. But why do that if you're just making a trifle? And I shouldn't just say just making a trifle. But the nice thing about a trifle is it's all in a bowl, and you don't have to take a lot of time on the decorating. You just want, you know, a tasty trifle. All right, so I think that's enough. You don't even have to put the grated chocolate if you don't want, but it's a nice touch. So we'll put this over to the side. And then we have the cake that I baked this morning. I used the Hershey's chocolate cake, and there is a video for that recipe. Okay, so what I did is I lined it into a half sheet pan and then turned it over there. And now what I'm going to do is just cut this into cubes, probably about 1-inch pieces. And I'm going to be using, there'll be 2 layers, so I'm going to use half of the cake on one layer and half of the cake on another layer. I was looking through my pictures on this. The last time I made it was a little over a year ago for my daughter's birthday. And I had her children, my grandchildren, helping me. So it's nice to have your kids in the kitchen helping you whenever you can. Okay. Everything's going to be divided in 2. So I've got the cake layers in 2. And then when I'm doing my mousse filling and such, it's basically going to be in 2. Maybe have a 60-40 because as this gets bigger, it gets whiter. All right. All we're going to do is get in here with our cake pieces and just line the bottom. I always like to do the outside first so that they can see that there's cake all around there, and then it looks like a layer. You want those chunks showing up. This cake is really fresh. I got the idea for this chocolate mousse cake when my favorite bakery closed. And I couldn't find it. This was in the 80s. And I couldn't find that chocolate mousse cake anywhere. Now there's probably not a problem. You could probably find it pretty much anywhere. So I had to, you know, when you can't find something, you just got to come up with your own recipe. So that's how I ended up with this recipe. Just making it myself. All right, we're almost done. And now that I've made the mousse, you know, they're actually requesting it. Okay. And I'm going to wash my hands real quick because they're pretty sticky from this cake. Let me give my hands a quick rinse here. Okay, so we got that first cake layer down. And I like to go in with Hershey's syrup and give it a nice little coating of that. And get kind of on the sides too so that they can see that you got that in there. And then, okay, so now we have our mousse. And I say we should do probably a 60-40. So in here, I'm going to say that this is 60, and then, or this is the 40, and then we're going to leave the 60 for the layer because it fans out at the top. So we always want to look at our sides and make sure that we're getting our sides, because it's all about presentation on this trifle. All right, I'll put just a little bit more. Okay, now we're gonna do the same thing with the whipped cream. So we could just kind of get in there. I want to take about 40% of it and leave 60 for that next layer. And we'll just fan this out. Sides first, because we want to see all those layers on the side of our dish. All right. Let me cut some more cake. I'm running out of counter space here. Alrighty. So again, let's get those edges first. This would be a nice trifle for the holidays. All right. Might have to press this down a little bit. I'll press it down. And I'm going to need to rinse my hands again, get all this sticky cake off of them. All right, same thing. Hit the sides first with this syrup. There we go. And we're going to put the rest of the ganache, well, the mousse, I mean. You're probably going to need to press it down because we're getting full here. Well, that's okay. My whipping cream must have really whipped up good today. So that's a really nice problem to have. I'm going to come in here and just give it a little bit of a lip there because I know this is going to go over. All right. We've got all the mousse. And that's gonna leave us with our whipped cream. Look at that, how impressive. And we didn't have to fuss over piping and, you know, doing a lot of decorating. We just let the layers be the focal point to this. All right, that is beautiful. All right, so what I'm gonna do, I am anticipating making a mess. So I'm gonna put these sprinkles or these shavings on right on this tray here, and we'll just sprinkle them all over. And that little bit of chocolate gave us a lot of shavings. So I'm just gonna go all the way to the edge here. How decadent. Right, just cover the whole thing. And there it is. Chocolate mousse trifle. It's an impressive dessert. You know, you could, if you don't feel like making the cake and the curls and stuff, make this. Everybody loves it. I think it's even more decadent than the cake because it has the extra layers of the Hershey's chocolate syrup. So it's very nice. I will come over with the camera and get you some close-ups of that. But there it is. Hershey's chocolate trifle. Guess you could call it that since we used the Hershey's cake. Thank you for watching. I do hope you enjoy these recipes and this vlog that I have on YouTube. I've had a lot of fun making these videos, but I can't really grow unless you're liking, subscribing, and sharing. Thank you. Appreciate your support.